So the Rancor head from Galactic Armory, thanks to those guys for this amazing file. Holy crap, it was a lot of fun to build, but probably not my best decision in the world. If you start from the sheer size of it, where are you going to put it? That's what a lot of people kept asking me when they seen that I was building this thing. It's like, it's huge. Where are you going to hang this thing? And it's like, at the time, it's like, I don't know. I have settled on a space in the garage. It's the only place I have enough real estate on the wall where it will actually go. I don't want it in the garage, but that's where it's got to go for the time being. In the house, there was always either a piece of furniture, an outlet, a light switch, a wife saying, no, you can't put it there. So it's not going in the house right now. The size of it, put that aside, and then talk about the cost. I should have spent that money on a myriad of different other projects around the house, but instead, I built a Rancor head. And I'm probably pushing $750 to $800 in this thing for a total cost of filament, spray paint, lumber, fiberglass, resin, filler putties, everything that I needed in order to get this thing completed. It was, just a stupid amount of money. I didn't have that amount of money. Now, of course, it was spread out over the entire summer. That I didn't just throw it on the credit card. It was a little bit at a time. The filament I bought a little at a time. I started planning this 6 months in advance. So I'd buy filament here, filament here, filament here, and just stockpiled it. I'll tell you later in the video how much filament I actually used in it. It may be at the end, it may be somewhere in the middle. I don't know, you have to watch the whole thing to find out. But anyways, while I got you here, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, tell me what you think of it down in the comments, and let's get into the build. Three boxes here, 2.5 boxes I should say. This is all the support material that came from trying to print this Rancor head. Here, this tub here is overflowing with 60 panels that make up all of the skin. This box here is the tongue. There's 6 pieces that make up the tongue. And then I've got a bag full of teeth. 17 teeth in total. This is going to be one hell of a jigsaw puzzle to get going on. So probably the most important thing you got to think about doing when if you're gonna print this thing is to make sure you keep your parts organized. As they come off of the printer, make sure you label them somehow on what number part they are. And that's what I'm doing here. All of mine have been numbered. I got a piece of tape on them with the number wrote on them, and I'm laying them out in numerical order, so it's just easier for me to go and grab them off the floor and help identify which one they are to mate it up to the next part. So if you don't number them, it's gonna not be impossible, but the next thing to it to try and figure out what's what and what goes where. Now, as far as assembly goes, I'm using what's called a plastic welder and super glue. That's all I'm using to connect these parts together. Now, the plastic welder, I've got a video that I was going to have posted already, but I forgot to post it. I'm going to put that out next week on exactly what it is and how it works. But yeah, wear your respirator, it gets really stinky. All right, so it is fully assembled, but there is no way that this is ready to be mounted on a wall and start the finishing process. This thing is extremely heavy. I used 35 kilograms of filament in this thing. Now, convert that over to our American system, it's roughly 77 pounds of plastic that went into making this thing. Now, if you subtract out the amount of filament used for the supports, you drop that down into about the 50-pound range is what this thing currently weighs. So it's huge, it's heavy, and there's no way to currently mount it. You won't be able to just take and put a couple of screws into the wall and hang it off of this. It'll just break itself to pieces. So we've got to build a wooden structure onto the inside of it, attach that wooden structure to the inside really well, reinforce the inside of this thing really well, and figure out a way to actually physically attach it to the wall without having anything on the outside so it will fit flush to the wall. To do that, we are going to utilize what is called a French cleat. I've already cut them down. These are 35 inches long. They will fit in here perfectly. I made them 35 inches long so it will expand the distance between 3 wall studs. Wall studs are going to be 16 on center, meaning from the center of this stud to the center of this stud is 16 inches. So from the center of this stud to the third one over, so 1, 2, 3, is going to be 32 inches. So with these being 35 inches, it will span that distance and give me plenty of support, just because this thing's going to be extremely heavy once I get all the wooden structure in there and what we're going to do on the next step. Now, how a French cleat works is it's a 2-part system. So you're going to have your board and they're going to be ripped at an angle. So the one that goes on the wall like this will be your wall. It will fasten onto the wall just like that. And then this piece will fasten to the inside of the model. So the model will be on this side. So when you take this, push the model up against the wall, it will just slide down onto here, and the weight of the model will just slide down, lock it in place, and pull it tight up against the wall. So this is how we're going to hang it off of our wall. I have this one and this one. So we will have a support up here, and we'll have one right here behind the where the mouth is. And then we're going to build an entire structure in here that will take all the weight from down in here and transfer it this way. This is where having a 3D printing studio that is actually a wood shop comes into is very beneficial. I've already got all the woodworking tools and everything that I need in order to complete this task. All right, so I'm going to shut the microphone off and we'll start building this wooden structure. All right, so I got the entire wooden structure completely built. It should be more than sufficient to support the entire weight of this thing, but it's still a very weak model. There's no way it would sustain being hung up on the wall. It would be too easy for it to freaking break and shatter because there's very little holding these connections together. Metal staple and a little bit of super glue, so we've got to drastically reinforce it. So what we're going to do is we're going to fiberglass the entire thing. I've got this fiberglass cloth here, and typically fiberglass, when you're fiberglassing something, the resin that you use is polyester resin, but I'm not going to use that because it has a exothermic reaction. All resins have an exothermic reaction, which means it gets hot as it cures, but the polyester resin that you typically use on fiberglass has a max exothermic temperature of somewhere around 375 degrees, which I think would be highly detrimental to my 100% PLA freaking model here. It might just melt it and warp it, and I'd have a puddle of plastic on the floor. Probably not quite that bad, but it would ruin it. So we are gonna go with epoxy resin, which can be used with fiberglass cloth just the same. It may not have the same flexibility and stuff like that, but we don't really care. We just need it to fully impregnate this cloth. We're going to wrap the entire inside with this stuff, and anywhere a board is up against the structure, we're going to cut strips, and we're going to layer strips of fiberglass and super support this so that this wooden structure becomes one with the plastic, and then it will be extremely strong, and we can hang it up on the wall. We could probably even sit on the damn thing. We're not going to sit on the thing, but we could. All right, so I've got to put on a bunch of specialty clothing and that to protect myself because this stuff's nasty. Another reason I'm going to use this is it doesn't stink like fiberglass polyester resin does. It's got an odor, but it's fairly low odor, and this has a lot of working time. I get a 40-minute working time. I bought 2 of these 1-gallon kits, so I should have more than enough to do this thing. So I need a full suit to protect myself from all the little fibers of this stuff, gloves, respirator. All right, let's do this. All right, so I got it up on the mount, and holy crap, is it freaking big. It's a very elderly Rancor. He hasn't put his dentures in yet. Got his dentures down here that I still need to figure out where they go. But I got a lot of work to do to this thing before the teeth are gonna go on. So I wanna say, have a look around on the inside here, show you how this thing actually hangs. So you got, remember you got this board and this board are firmly attached to the Rancor itself. And then this board and this board are going to be attached to the wall. So all it's holding this thing in is just gravity. It's got, the wedge shape. You push this up here, it slides down, and these boards just slide together and lock it in good and tight. The reason why it's not tight up against here is because when I built this structure, I didn't really give a shit whether or not this and this board were exactly parallel with each other. So my angles are a little bit off. I just quickly built this structure. So now there is a lot of fiberglass resin that leaked through all over the place on this thing that has to be cleaned up. I've got a lot of uneven panel lines that have to be smoothed over, try and make them a little more even. There's of course gaps that we're gonna have to deal with. We'll get to that later. But the next step is I've got to get rid of all of this excess resin that leaked out. And we're gonna do a bulk of the work with an angle grinder with an 80 grit sandpaper wheel on here. So this is gonna make a tremendous amount of mess. I wish I could get this outside and do this outside, but it's just too big and unwieldy to transport in and out of my shop. So I'm just gonna have to deal with the fact that it's gonna be a horrible mess. I'm gonna put on a set of disposable coveralls, a respirator, a face shield, and then I'll have to do a lot of vacuuming in here when I'm done. All right, got my kill room all set up in here so I can grind. Got my coveralls. Earbuds. Gotta listen to a podcast while you do this. All right, so I got all the grinding done. The panel lines are fairly well cleaned up and evened out. There's still, all these gaps and everything that needs to be filled. If you notice, the eyes are red. Not trying to make them evil. I put Bondo paste on here, Bondo spot putty, because the eyes have got to be smooth. They've got to be, like glass smooth. So I started with Bondo putty. We're going to sand that down. Now, to fill in all of these gaps and make all of these panel lines disappear, I've thought about a couple of different things that going out, milliput, some green stuff, things that I thought might work, but would be just a tremendous amount of effort to try and make them two-part epoxies come together and fill these things in. And I remembered I had a tub of air dry clay down in my workbench. With this stuff, I get 24 hours of work time, and it will dry. It will dry completely hard like a plaster, and it doesn't crack, or at least when I've used it, it doesn't crack. It's going to be used in relatively thin areas. So yeah, this should work great, and I can work all day long and not have to worry about this drying out on me. All right, so I'm going to get after that. Panel lines all filled in with that air dry clay. The tongue is just set in here right now. I don't have it glued in. I was just making sure it fit all right. Now I've got a crap load of sanding to do. This air dry clay sands really easily. So I'm going to go through and kind of feather the edges a little bit where I put it on. Any of the high points, sand it down. I'm not going to get super crazy with it. It shouldn't, maybe a couple hours with the sanding, and I'll have all the sanding taken care of. Once the sanding's done, I'm going to go ahead and glue the tongue into place. And then I'm going to go through and glue all of the teeth down. I'll show you when we start figuring out the teeth. That's going to be a pain in the ass because trying to figure out which one fits into each one of these little sockets. But I want to get the teeth in before I prime it, because if there's any weird distortions, they don't fit in there quite right, we might have to get in there with some putty and fill in any gaps and make them look properly, because we don't want them just floating up in there. So I'm going to go ahead and start sanding.
After I got all the sanding done, I went ahead and started gluing all the teeth in. The teeth, I did not label which part was what, because I was just bulk printing them. But if you want to print them individually to keep them more organized, the way they go in the mouth is it starts at the top right of the jaw if you're looking at the mouth, and then it moves left across the jaw. Then it jumps down to the bottom right and moves left across the jaw. So it'll be top right is number 1. Bottom left is number 17. Now, the thumbnail says I printed this entire thing on a single printer. It wasn't 100% truthful. I ended up printing the teeth on my Centauri Carbon. I filled in gaps around the teeth with some UV resin, and then it was on to painting. Now, after 2 good coats of filler primer, I painted the entire model with just plain flat brown spray paint, except for the inside of the mouth. That's going to be my shadow tone, the base color. Now, spraying down from above, I'm trying to maintain any shadow color in any of the recesses underneath the skin folds and all that. I'm just spraying with a light tan, doing what's called a zenithal prime, basically. That way, it's highlight on the top, and it'll be still shadowed down below. And then once I had that on there, then I sprayed the inside of the mouth with royal red. Then I went ahead and painted all the teeth with the Tester's brand Craft Paint Desert Sand color. Now I go back with my airbrush and I deepen the shadows and accentuate the highlights. I use a really deep brown, thin down, really thin for the shadow colors, and only sprayed from below going up. And for the highlights, I used a sunny yellow color, also thin down, and I sprayed only from above going down. And with the really thin paint, I just go back and forth, layer after layer, and it gives a nice, completely seamless blend going from one color to the next. Now for the tongue, I mixed some cheap red and black crafts paint. I mean, it's the cheapest of the cheap. And then I thinned it down to nearly the consistency of dirty paint water. And then I just started spraying that maroonish color red into all of the recesses. Now after I was happy with the color of the tongue, I moved on to painting the teeth. I started with AK Interactive Streaky Grime, put a whole bunch of it around the bottom of the tooth, and then I would use brushes and rags, and I would just drag it up the tooth towards the tip, leaving, streaks. That's what streaky grime is supposed to do. Several coats so it would be darker at the base of the tooth and lighter as it got towards the top. Then I used my airbrush and some sepia wash to blend all the colors together so I had not such a harsh transition from the white tooth to that dingy streaky grime color. And the sepia wash also gave the whole tooth an overall yellowish color, as somebody who doesn't really have the best dental hygiene is going to have. Alright, then I painted the tear ducts with Citadel's Blood for the Blood God, and then put some red ink in my airbrush, and I sprayed the inside of the eyelids with that red ink, and I also sprayed that ink around the nostrils a little bit, where the blood would be closer to the surface through the thin skin of the nostrils. Then it was time for clear coating. I sprayed Rattle Can matte clear coat over all of the skin, and then Rattle Can gloss for the inside of the mouth and the teeth, and then I had some high gloss clear coat that I used for my airbrush, and I got that in so I could spray just the eyeballs around the matte colored skin.
Well, this is his new home. I got him off the assembly stand, moved out here, hung up on the wall here in my garage. The garage, not exactly where I would like him to be, but it is the only place I currently have that has enough wall space to put it. So I've got this big, stark white background that he's now hanging on. And it looks a little weird having that white background, but my idea is to maybe try and do a mural behind it where it would be the upper body of the Rancor here, and right along the wall above his head would be the bottom of the door that Luke eventually drops down on him. I think that might be kind of cool. Now, I don't know if I am capable of pulling that off or not. I can do cartoony stuff, but as far as trying to get realism, I don't think I have the artistic talent for it. By cartoony, I mean like I got these llamas over here. I drew those guys. So it's not an original artwork. Somebody else actually came up with the artwork. I seen a picture of it somewhere and then I recreated it on these panels. What do you think? Would that be a video worth watching, trying to do a mural on here that I'm more than likely going to fail at and have to repaint it white? I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe, hit that like button, and well, it'll probably be a while before I do another massive project like this. But I'll see you next time.